Hi, welcome to another flip lesson. This week we're going to be doing some more with fractions this week. The question is going to be, how do you compare fractions with unlike numerators and denominators? In this lesson you will learn how to compare fractions by creating common denominators. And just a quick review, that fractions can be shown in different ways. You can show 1/4 with numerator and denominator. That's the usual way you'll see them. You can also use models, which we've talked about. So here would be 1/4. If I was going to shade in 1/4 of the stars, there's 1 out of the 4. And then we've briefly talked about number lines. So here's 1. So here's 1, 2, 3, there's 4 parts. So if I just shade in 1/4, or I go 1/4 of the way, that would be 1/4 on a number line. And quickly we talked about top number is the numerator, that's how many parts you have. And the bottom number is the denominator, how many equal parts make up the whole. Alright, so we're going to do a quick review in 3rd grade. Hopefully you learned about comparing fractions with like numerators and denominators, which is easier than what you're going to be learning today. But we're just going to do a quick review. So, for example, with these top 2 fractions that we're going to compare, we've got 3/4 and we have 1/4. And as you can see, the denominators are like, and it's easy to see that 3/4 is greater than, and that's the comparison. So when you compare, you're using the greater than, less than, equal to symbols, or you're putting them in order. So 3 parts is greater than just the 1 part, because the whole is the same, it's the exact same rectangle. You just have 3 is greater than 1. So if you ate 3/4 of a candy bar, you ate more than the person who ate only 1/4 of their candy bar. So that's usually the easy, well, not usually, it is the easier one when you have the denominator the same. All you have to do is look at the numerator and you can tell which fraction is bigger. A little trickier at the bottom here, when the numerators are the same, it gets a little trickier. So we've got 3/8 and 3/4. So in this case, the numerators are the same. Common mistake is someone will say, or look at it and say 3/8, well, that's greater than, because 8 is bigger than 4. But if you have a picture, you can clearly see that 3/8 is actually smaller than 3/4. And the reason is because the pieces are actually smaller. So 3/8, you still have 3 pieces, but it's split into 1/8, so that means the pieces are smaller. So actually, 3/8 is less than 3/4. So when the numerators are the same, you're actually, the bigger number, the bigger denominator is actually the smaller fraction. And the smaller denominator is actually the bigger fraction because the pieces are bigger. If that was a little confusing, just rewind it and watch it again. If not, if it made sense, go on to the next slide. Alright, so now we're going to get into our core lesson about talking about trying to compare fractions that don't have common numerators and denominators. So if you look at the top, these 3 fractions, it's not easy to compare because they don't have the common denominators like we had with 3/4 and 1/4, which was really easy. 3/4 is greater than 1/4 because 3 is bigger than 1. It's not going to be as easy with these, so we have to find common denominators just like we have common here to make it easy. So the first thing you want to do is write out your fractions and then have some space to the right. If you want to do this on your own scratch paper, you can pause it quick, get some paper. If not, you can just watch. So with 2/3, 1/2, and 4/5, I want to try think of a number that they all have in common if I count by that number. So you want to find multiples and find a multiple that's all the same. So if I counted by 3's, 3, 6, 9, and I kept going, get to 30. If I count by 2's, 2, 4, 6, I'll get to 30. If I count by 5's, I get to 30. And if you look, any numbers before 30, they don't have in common, so we can't use that. So you have to use multiples and then find that number they all have in common. In this case, it's going to be 30. So we're going to use that as the common denominator. Oh, kind of got messed up. Let's try. Oh, there we go. All right, so now that we know 30 is going to be the common denominator, we can use what we know from our equivalent fractions from the previous lesson. So we know we wanted 30 at the bottom, so then we have to think 3 times what got me to 30, and that would be 10. So just like we learned earlier this week, do the same to the top as you do to the bottom, so 2 times 10 is 20. Next example, we knew again 30 had to be the denominator, so you had to think, how did I get from 2 to 30 times 15? Do the same to the top. 1 times 15 is 15. And do the same thing to the bottom. How did we get from 5 to 30? Because that was our denominator. 5 times 6. Do the same to the top. So we get 24 30ths. So now you can see it's going to be easy or easier to order these now or compare them because they all have 30 now as the denominator. They're all still the same. They're equivalent fractions. 2/3 is the same as 20 30ths. 1/2 is the same as 15 30ths. 4/5 is the same as 24 30ths. We just found a common denominator so we can compare them easier. So we have 15 30ths. That's the smallest number. So that's first. Then 20 30ths, that's the second largest. And then 24 30ths is the largest because 24 is bigger than 20 and 15. So if we want to go back now to the original fractions, we can order them. 1/2 is the smallest, 2/3 is the second, and then 4/5 is actually the biggest fraction. So in this lesson you learned how to compare fractions by creating common denominators, and if it was a little confusing, just go back, rewatch it. If not, you can go on to one more practice problem here before the entrance ticket. So I want you to put the following fractions, and I screwed up on the grammar there, so put the following, not put to. Put the following fractions in order from least to greatest. So I want you to pause the video and then use the same strategy as I showed you. So just to get you started before you pause it, I would do 1/2, 2/5, and then 3/4, and try to find that common denominator like we did in the previous example. All right, so pause the video, put them in order, and then hit play again and see if you got it correct. Alright, so if you wanted to find the common denominator, if you count by 2s, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and you kept going. Same with 5, 5, 10, 15, 20, and you kept going. You counted by 4s, 4, 8, 12, and you kept going. You would have noticed that 20 would have been your common denominator. So 20, 20, and 20. So now you have to figure out how did you get from 4 to 20? That would be times 5. So 3 times 5 is 15. How did you get from 5 to 20? That was times 4. So do the same to the top. 2 times 4 is 8, so that's 8 20ths. And then 2 times 10 is 20. So 1 times 10 is 10. So now it's easy. 8 20ths. Oops, 8 20ths is the smallest, followed by 10 20ths, and then 15 20ths is the largest. Now, going back to the original question, which fraction? So we know that 8/20 was the 2/5, so 2/5 is the smallest. 1/2 is the middle one, and then 3/4 is the largest fraction. All right, on to the entrance ticket. Oh wait, sorry, this is not going to be the entrance ticket. I'm going to go to, oh no, this is it. All right, so on your ticket, I want you to put A and B. So this will be your A answer, and this will be your B answer. All right, again, if you're a little confused, go back, rewatch it. Good luck on the entrance ticket.